All right, let's dive into this explainer and completely rethink how we design 48V battery banks for heavy heating loads. When most people design an off-grid system to run a heater, they usually just think in terms of watts and runtime. They figure out how many watts the heater needs, check the watt hours on their battery label, and assume, great, I'm good to go. But as we're going to see today, that mindset, that is exactly why these systems fail. We really need to shift our perspective entirely, away from just thinking about electrical capacity and start thinking about thermal physics.
To do that, we have to shatter a very common illusion. Resistive heating simply doesn't behave like your normal electronics. It doesn't surge, it doesn't cycle, it pulls constant, maximum stress until something gives. Think about it. When you plug in a laptop or a fridge, the power demand goes up and down, right? A resistive heater is an entirely different beast. It converts electrical energy directly into heat with absolutely zero storage, zero buffering. It's just a flat, continuous, unrelenting stress. Resistive heating isn't about energy storage, it's about enduring that relentless pull. And in a 48V battery bank, that's something that inevitably gives. It's almost always heat.
So let's compare the standard mindset against reality for a second. The standard way of thinking says, well, just divide watts by volts to get your amps, size the battery by watt hours, and strictly focus on how much runtime you get. So many DIY tutorials fall right into this runtime trap. But reality tells a much harsher story. The reality is about continuous discharge stress. It's about C-rate degradation. We have to focus on the thermal stress happening inside the battery cells themselves. Your system is actually a thermal engine, not just a gas tank. If you only focus on how long the battery will theoretically last, you are completely ignoring what that battery is physically experiencing the entire time it's running.
Okay, let's get into section 1, the physics of the pull, where we trace this power backwards.
To really understand why systems fail under these conditions, we have to trace the power backward from the heat source right down to the battery cells. We have to look at what the battery actually feels when you flip that heater on. We all know the basic power relationship, right? Current equals power divided by voltage. But the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that a battery doesn't magically supply watts to your heater. It supplies a continuous current draw, and that current generates heat. The battery only knows that a massive amount of amps is being forcefully ripped from its chemistry, and it's that continuous current that dictates the temperature of your battery, your cables, and really your entire system's lifespan.
And here is the hidden tax in your system: inverter efficiency. You see, the battery isn't supplying power directly to the heater. The inverter sits right in between, doing the heavy lifting of converting DC from the battery into AC power for the load. But because the inverter isn't 100% efficient, the DC side current demand on your battery is actually way higher than your AC load suggests. You have this constant inverter conduction heating happening right alongside your AC load. So your continuous draw just got heavier, and the battery has to work even harder just to make up for that fractional loss.
Let's walk through the exact steps you absolutely must use to evaluate your system's reality. Step 1, define your AC heating load in watts. Step 2, convert that to DC power using your inverter's efficiency loss, so adding back in that hidden tax we just talked about. Step 3, convert that DC power into battery current based on your 48V system. And finally, Step 4, evaluate the C-rate. This flow is critical because it links the AC load way at the end of the line directly to the DC battery stress. This is the exact modeling you have to do to see the real picture.
If you map out where your energy actually goes using a realistic runtime model, it's wild how fast your raw watt hours get eaten up. Depth of discharge limits shrink your usable pool right off the bat. Inverter losses take a constant slice. And then there's thermal derating. This is where your system literally throttles down or just wastes energy because it's getting way too hot under that heavy continuous load. Bottom line, you have far less usable energy than the label on your battery suggests, all because of the physics of that continuous pull.
Moving right along to section 2, the C-rate constraint. This is the hidden metric you really need to grasp.
So, C-rate simply equals discharge current divided by your battery's amp hours. But why does this matter? Well, C-rate is the ultimate measure of how violently your battery is being pushed relative to its actual physical size. It tells you not just if the battery can theoretically run the load, but how aggressively its internal chemistry is being stressed to actually pull it off.
To put that into perspective, at 0.2C, you're looking at a light load, no problem. At 0.5C, you're getting into moderate stress, but at 1C and above, no way. You have officially entered the severe continuous stress region. Remember, resistive heating loads don't just ask for short bursts of power to fire up a motor and then settle down. They park your system in these high, severe stress regions for hours at a time. And that sustained pull is exactly what causes intense internal cell heating. The battery isn't just draining, it is physically heating up from the inside out.
Which brings us to Section 3, the physics of failure, or what we can call thermal loading risk.
So what actually happens physically when a system sits in that severe stress zone for too long? It all comes down to the thermal risk principle, I squared R. Notice that the continuous current, the I in this formula, is squared. That means if the continuous current doubles, the heating losses don't just double, they quadruple. This exact formula is the reason why a bad connection literally melts down. Every single amp you push through the system aggressively multiplies those constant cable I squared R losses.
And because of that terrifying squared multiplier, under sustained high current loads, the battery itself usually isn't even the first thing to fail, it's the system's weakest links. We're talking undersized cables, poorly crimped terminals, underspec'd bus bars, and low-grade DC protection devices like cheap fuses. Under heavy resistive heating loads, these components unintentionally turn into localized heating elements. They aren't just transferring power anymore, they are literally cooking. There's a big distinction between bus bar heating and battery heating for sure, but make no mistake, both are completely deadly to your system.
I love this core philosophy of off-grid engineering. Every design decision is a heat routing decision. It's so true. Upgrading to a 48V system is an incredibly smart move because it drastically reduces the current compared to a 12V or 24V setup. But let's be clear, it never entirely eliminates the thermal physics. It merely shifts where the heat appears. You are always managing heat accumulation, not just energy consumption.
Finally, let's look at Section 4, thermal survival, and how we avoid the dreaded failure spirals.
Building a properly sized bank isn't just about having enough capacity to run your heater for a few hours. It's about whether your overall architecture can survive continuous thermal loading without a catastrophic meltdown. When you ignore thermal stress, you invite a relentless failure spiral, and it always starts the exact same way. First, the voltage drops under the heavy, sustained load. Second, the current automatically increases to compensate so it can deliver the same power to your heater. Third, because the current spiked, the heat rises drastically, thanks to that squared multiplier we just looked at. Fourth, that rising heat actually causes the physical resistance of your copper wires and connections to increase, which of course loops right back around to more voltage drop, even more current, and even more heat. It ends in step 5, total system instability. The whole thing accelerates until a critical component burns out, or, if you're lucky, your battery management system triggers a permanent safety cutoff.
So I want to leave you with this vital question to ponder for your own off-grid projects. Can your system genuinely survive continuous thermal loading? You have to look way beyond the basic watt hours. Check your connections, check your C rates, and thoroughly check your thermal routing. And as a quick reminder, electrical work is inherently dangerous, so absolutely always consult a qualified professional before you start building. This explainer is strictly for educational purposes. The physics of continuous thermal stress are totally unforgiving, but with the right mindset and the right math, you can build a robust 48V system that easily stands the test of time.